Afternoon, everyone. Yesterday, I predicted that the Liberals would use their majority in order to vote down having Mr. Dion, the ethics commissioner, come to present his facts on the SNC-Lavalin scandal to this ethics committee. And I was right. Exactly that happened. Here's Twitter Moments Canada tweeting, quote, "The Liberal-dominated ethics committee voted down a Conservative motion to have the ethics commissioner Mario Dion testify about his recent report on the SNC-Lavalin scandal." And his report concluded that Mr. Trudeau violated the conflict of interest laws and that he breached the ethics rules. And so that's, yet another breach from a sitting prime minister, a prime minister who can't seem to get away from these faux pas and these gaffes, these big deals. If this was Mr. Harper, people would be calling for him to step down. Even with Mr. Trudeau, people are calling for him to step down. Not just me, other people too. Global News is reporting, quote, "Liberals block bid to call ethics watchdog to committee even as wildcard MP breaks ranks." And I'll explain more about why he does that. Actually, Tom Mulcair will explain more about why he does that. But first, here we go. Liberals on the House of Commons Ethics Committee have blocked a push by the opposition members to get the ethics commissioner to testify about his scathing report on the SNC-Lavalin scandal. In a vote of 5-4 on Wednesday, 5 Liberal MPs voted down a motion supported by the Conservative and NDP members, as well as wildcard Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, that asked for the committee to invite Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion to answer questions about the conclusions of his report last week, which determined Prime Minister Justin Trudeau broke federal ethics rules by interfering in the Quebec firm's court case. The defeat came after the committee heard Dion was standing by to speak for them immediately if they so wished. So Mr. Dion was actually there, ready to go, saying, if you guys want, I'll come in right now. You guys can ask your questions. Let's get this done. Nope. Back to the article. Liberals Steve McKinnon, Mona Fortier, Michael Picard, Frank Baylis, and Anita Vanderblend, who herself was found last month by Dion to have broken federal ethics rules, voted against the motion to invite the watchdog. Liberal Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, Conservative Lisa Raitt, and Peter Kent, and the NDP's Charlie Angus supported the motion. All the Liberals then voted in unison on a second motion by Angus, asking a variation of the same, after which Raitt moved a motion asking to call a CBC News journalist to table all records from interviews conducted with Trudeau for a recently published book about the SNC-Lavalin scandal. That motion was immediately condemned and quickly withdrawn. Tensions quickly flared during the meeting as opposition MPs raised repeated points of order during the Liberals' statement in an attempt to force the Liberals to table evidence to support their claims that jobs would be at risk if SNC-Lavalin were to face prosecution. 6 of the 10 members of the committee are Liberals and previously voted to shut down an opposition request to study the SNC-Lavalin scandal earlier this year. The opposition members would have needed to flip at least 2 Liberals in order for the motion to have a chance at succeeding. Flipping 2 Liberals would have triggered a tie-breaking vote by the chair of the committee, Conservative MP Bob Zimmer. Shortly after the meeting got underway, opposition members began to speak about why they wanted to hear from the commissioner, and stressing they sought more answers not because of the upcoming election campaign, but because of the specific violations of the rules flagged by Dion. Quote, "This is red meat right before an election, and we all know that," said Green Party leader Elizabeth May, who also added she would ultimately like to see the committee invite former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to appear again. Quote, "But something was really wrong here." She also said that while she isn't calling herself for Trudeau to resign, she thinks what he did warrants it. Quote, "The Prime Minister is guilty of the kind of offense for which resignation is appropriate," says Elizabeth May. Now, this is a couple of weeks before the writ dropping in an election, which they are competitors. So take that with a grain of salt, right? I mean, Mr. Scheer has been calling on Mr. Trudeau to bring the lawsuit again, and this is all politicking, right? So it's all distractionary. It's very interesting because it's not going to happen. If the Liberals were going to remove Trudeau, they would have done so, and they're not. He embodies the Liberals. He is the brand, and that's it. And they're going to ride that for good or ill, and I think probably ill in October. But the hair and the socks have become Liberal, and that Mao pin as well, right? That Pierre Elliott was wearing in that comic the other day. I Heart Mao. Yeah, that's all Liberal. They can own it. On the far left. further left than the NDP. Anyway, back to the article. Rate, a lawyer by training, said the report represents, quote, uncharted territory, giving Trudeau has claimed to accept the findings while at the same time rejecting some of its determinations in public statements, rather than the established legal channel of seeking a judicial review on it in federal court. She also stressed the committee needs to hear from Dion, given he detailed in his report being barred from accessing a significant amount of information. And I've talked about the report, and I didn't go into that, but yeah, Dion was blocked by Mr. Trudeau's not opening up cabinet confidences to allow him to ask questions of other cabinet members. So he opened up Jody Wilson-Raybould to answer questions, but nobody else. And so because that cabinet confidence was not lifted for any other witnesses, Mr. Dion didn't have all the evidence that he needed and still came back that Trudeau violated the rules. Here's Tom Mulcair doing his best Wolfman impression. Sorry for the pause face, Tom. And I found this interesting. He's talking about Nathaniel Erskine Smith and why he voted yes. He voted yes to have Dion in. And however, he first engages in a full-throated attack, says Mr. Mulcair. And well, here you go. I'll let him explain it because I find it interesting.
Nathaniel Erskine Smith delivers this full-throated attack on Dion, knowing full well he will not be given the right to answer. I mean, that's a breach of common decency, forget fancy rules of natural justice, allowing the other person the right to be heard. And I was gobsmacked at the behavior. It was such a puppet show. So you had one who was supposed to be the bad cop, the other one was supposed to show a little bit more ethics and morals and saying, well, no, actually, I'd like to hear him. And then you realize he's using that platform to attack Mr. Dion. It was unseemly. It's unprecedented. Since the beginning, they've muzzled Jody Wilson-Raybould, so she wasn't able to give the full version of all of the attempts by Justin Trudeau's officers and himself to try to interfere in the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Now they're shutting down.
I'll leave that there. He's going through the whole thing. But yes, they're doing exactly the same thing that they did to Jody Wilson-Raybould. They shut it down. They shut down the Justice Committee. They shut it down. They brought her out and they gave her a very narrow focus. And I mean, she was clearly saying, well, what this ethics commissioner is saying too, Justin Trudeau broke the law. And however, the caucus is meant to be the mechanism in Canadian politics that holds the Prime Minister accountable. And the caucus, as I said, is beholden to Trudeau. Why? Because the Liberal brand is Trudeau. Period. Before Trudeau showed up, they were a distant third place to Tom Mulcair. He was the official opposition in 2011 and going into the 2015 election. Justin Trudeau was a distant third, polling 12%. And then the niqab ban came in, and Harper said we should ban niqabs, and Tom Mulcair, who's a Quebec politician, agreed with him and said yes, we should. And that turned Ontario, and that turned Quebec, and the polls did all that. So it's quite interesting watching all of this because, again, if Harper was in this much hot water, and make no mistake, Justin Trudeau's in hot water. Wernick resigned. 2 cabinet ministers were ejected from caucus for supporting what Mr. Dion says happened, right? Saying what you did was improper, Mr. Trudeau, and you shouldn't have done it. For that, you get kicked out of caucus, kicked out of being a Liberal, and now they're both independents. Quite interesting, right? If you get fired from a job and you weren't wrong, and then your boss publicly gets, well, I mean, this happened, right? Or your former boss, I suppose, has this happen, and he's still standing for re-election, and that caucus is still letting him do that, and they're still standing behind him? Unbelievable, right? What kind of country do we live in? Yeah. It bears wondering out loud sometimes. So, thanks for watching. I've got one more video coming right up. I'm back home, everyone. Sorry for the bumpy ride the last couple of weeks. I had the last week, I suppose. I had lots of traveling and vacations and trying to keep up with work and campaigning and this and all of the other stuff and doing all my family stuff too. Well, it was a lot, but I appreciate the patience you guys all had. I apologize if any of my shows weren't up to my usual standard. I'm hopeful that this will shake that all off now. So I'm back to my usual studio. I'm back to my usual fridge turning on and off beside me, which some people hear and some people comment on, which I think is funny. And well, thank you for watching. I've got another video coming right up, and we'll have a wonderful day. Check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca and have a wonderful, wonderful day. I know I said that twice, but you know.